live life in the moment, try to enjoy your journey to financial independence, not just live in deprivation, push everything off, because you aren't guaranteed to even make it until traditional retirement age. So unfortunately, my dad passed away in his early 60s, and then my husband's dad passed away in his early 50s. So neither of them even made it until traditional retirement age, right? So it's like you don't know that you're guaranteed to live that long.
Welcome to the Student Loan Podcast.
Here, you'll find practical advice on tackling student loan debt, paying down your higher education expenses,
and inspiring stories about paying off student loans. We're your hosts, Daphne Vanessa
and Shamil Rodriguez.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Student Loan Podcast by visiting the Student Loan Podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is not professional advice, and we speak from our own personal views and opinions.
The Student Loan Podcast is brought to you by Start New, where you can serve your community and get rewarded with tuition and student loan payments. To check out if Start New is on your campus, visit startnew.com. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Student Loan Podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest, and I don't even know how to say this other than we have been fortunate enough to meet Kat in a group that we have together of like-minded individuals that are on the path towards sharing messages to improve other people's lives. So Kat has a podcast of her own called PA, the FI Way, for financial independence, for those of you who don't know. And we are so excited to welcome Kat onto the show. So with that, Kat, please give us an introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daphne, for that introduction. As you mentioned, my name is Kat and I am a PA. So there are several PAs out there in the world, but the PA that I am is a physician assistant, and we are a type of a medical provider. And I started the podcast PA the FI Way because, as you mentioned, Daphne, I'm trying to teach other PAs about the concept of financial independence. So I've worked as a PA for 7 years now. I started in family medicine, so I worked there for about 6.5 years. And then recently, the beginning of this year, I was able to do outpatient psychiatry. And I still am keeping a casual urgent care position to kind of keep my general medical knowledge up. But that's one of the main things I absolutely love about my profession, is that we're able to switch different specialties of medicine. It's called lateral mobility. So we really appreciate that aspect about our profession.
That's an amazing opportunity, and not one that all career paths have. So can you speak to us a little bit for people exploring into the world of wanting to become a physician assistant? What was the path towards becoming a physician assistant like, and how much did it cost?
Sure. We're diving right in, aren't we, Daphne?
I couldn't help myself.
That's okay. That's great. I love it. So yes, so most PAs currently have to have master's education. So back in the day, it was a bachelor's education, but nowadays, most of us have master's degrees. There are some that now have doctors in medical science degrees too. Oh, wow. So it's possible that the profession may go that way down the road. We don't, it's kind of a little too early, I would say, to know that. But some people do have their doctorates and work as PAs as well. So you do have to get your bachelor's. And as many pre-med students, you can technically major in anything. But you do have to have so many different types of requirements or prereqs. So you often do have to have the biology classes, the chemistry, the OChem, psychology, those types of things as well before you get your bachelor's. But you could technically be a history major and take all those science classes if you wanted to. And then for your master's degree, I would say the programs usually vary between 2 years and 3 years. My program was 25 months. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is not a short period of time but well worth it. It sounds like. Speak to our audience a little bit about the differences between choosing to go the physician assistant route and the MD route, because it sounds like you guys are in school for the same period of time. I have to be honest.
Oh, yes. Good question. We're actually in school a fair amount less than MDs. So MDs get their doctorate degree. They are medical students for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So instead of like a 2 to 3 year master's. But then after that, they have to get a residency. So going through residency can be 3 years up to 5 years. And sometimes there's even fellowship past that. So I absolutely love my physician colleagues and the physicians that I've worked with over the years, the ones that I had to train in during my rotations back in PA school. But when I looked at that length of training, I just didn't really want that for myself. It just seemed like I would have spent so much time in school as well as some money. So PA education is less than MDs in the sense of cost because it is less time in school. So we are able to go into any area of medicine as long as the place is willing to train us. Some PAs do decide to go into fellowship as well. There are some fellowship programs out there or residencies if PAs absolutely want to do that, but that's pretty few of us that do that as well. So my PA student loan debt was $122,616. And that did include some undergrad. Okay. So I was very fortunate enough to get scholarships undergrad, and my dear mother was very kind and did provide some funding as well. So that total amount probably included about $10,000 worth of undergrad cost. So the majority of that was certainly from PA school.
Wow, that is not inexpensive. That's on the expensive side. But again, sounds like well worth it. I think what would help the audience is to discuss what are some financing options that exist while you're a student, and then we'll sort of talk about the payback plan after.
Sure, certainly. So I would say that most PAs have to take out student loans. I would think that it would be very unusual for PAs to be able to self-fund their education, unless perhaps this is a second career. So maybe some people did work in another type of profession and then decided to go back to PA school, and they, had savings or wealth built up outside that they were able to use that to pay for their loans. Sometimes you can get scholarships in PA school. I think that it's somewhat rare to get your full tuition paid for in PA school, though it's possible that it could happen. So I would say for the majority of people, they, go take out loans and live off of those loans in PA school. And then afterwards, you can try to pay off your student loans by a lot of different ways. There are few different types of programs. There's PSLF, which is a really good program that you can look into, which is public loan forgiveness. And that was a pretty new program back when I was out of PA school. But some PAs could decide that that's the route that they would like to go. There are other types of routes where you could work in underserved areas as well, and perhaps qualify for some National Health Services type of scholarships or repayment programs as well. Or some PAs may decide that they want to join the military because the profession was actually founded from the military back in the day.
No way.
So, yeah. Back many years ago, I think not many years ago, but back in the 60s. So to my millennial self, it sounds like many years ago, right? Back in the 60s, it was founded, and medics were coming home from war. And then these medics had this advanced training, but they, didn't really want to spend the time or the money to go to med school. And so the founder of the PA profession was a physician that started to train and teach these medics at Duke University. Wow. So I think that's pretty cool.
Didn't know that.
That is such an interesting fact. I did not know that.
No, I didn't either.
I feel empowered for some dinner party conversation, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
Super cool. Yeah. I didn't know that. You're in the military, Shmuel. What do you think about that?
No, awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I took advantage of that for law school. Obviously not PA school, nice. But it was great to get my law degree for free. So I think those are some really great ways to do it. And I think one of the benefits that sometimes people just assume, and now I'm not a recruiter and I don't know how the PAs come in, but when you're a lawyer or you are in the medical profession coming in, I just don't know if it's just for doctors or not, but I'd be curious to see if for PAs it applies. I would assume it would, but you basically come as a civilian into the military and bring your expertise into the military. So it's just a great opportunity to take advantage of, especially if you want to give back to, the fighting force that's allowing you to pursue the job that you're having in the first place.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's funny that you say that, because I wasn't aware that lawyers could do that for going to the military to get their law degree paid for. So that's pretty awesome that you're able to do that.
And I'm glad you brought that up because not everybody does. So when we get the chance, I always try to plug it.
And so I think that the act of serving others as a career is one of the most selfless things that you can choose to do. You're essentially, you are a first responder towards people's health. And that's a really selfless thing to do. Can you share with the audience, if you feel comfortable, what your personal life story is that even brought you to wanting to be a PA in the first place?
Oh, sure. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for saying that, Daphne. I really appreciate that. We don't always get to hear, feedback from people. Sometimes we're hearing the frustrations and, people who are sick and they're really, angry that they can take out a lot of frustrations upon us. So we do appreciate if you have the chance to thank any medical providers, any nurses, anything like that. I encourage you guys to do that because it'll make their day. So thank you for that. Yeah. Back when I was considering what to do with my life, that was around junior year of high school. And I'm definitely a planner and wanted to figure out what I wanted. I lost things that I considered too, but I was
Save
loving,
yourself.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I was loving science and math and those types of things too. So I was leaning towards medical, checked definitely into nursing as well as doctors. And, so many people think that there's only nurses and doctors, but there are so many other types of professions within the medical field. But fortunately or unfortunately, when I was 14, I tore my ACL my first and last time skiing because I'm an absolute horrible skier.
Me
and
too.
The bindings were too tight and and I fell because I was bad. I rolled down the hill and twisted my knee. So therefore I went to the ER. And I didn't remember it necessarily at the time, but my mom took note that the provider in the ER who helped me was a PA. And that's where she was like, oh, PA, I need to remember that for the future. And so in high school was when I decided to kind of research the different professions and decide that PA was the route for me. And that's when I decided to pursue that route.
Nice. I love that. And where in the world did you grow up to allow you to just have that experience, just for like geographic context?
Yeah, so I'm in the upper Midwest. I'm actually way up in Minnesota. So the weather's changing and we're looking forward to some ice fishing coming up here.
Wow. Do you actually go ice fishing? Please tell the audience.
Oh yeah, totally.
No
It's
way.
funny because growing up, I never did at all. And then when I met my now husband, he was like, hey, you need to try this ice fishing thing. And I thought it was a very Minnesotan thing to try. And so we went and we didn't catch one fish that first night at all. But I thought the whole process was really cool to see. You get to watch, drilling the auger, you drive out on the lake, you set up everything up, you have your Vexler, which is your fish finder, and it's a really fun experience. And then once we started actually catching fish, my sister likes to come with along with my brother-in-law. And now my sister and I are completely addicted to it. And we really like to outfish guys as much as possible.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And can you please let me know what your contingency plan is in case the ice breaks? Just what's the plan? Please let me know.
Says the lawyer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thinking about those things, right? No, I love that. So unfortunately, yeah, you have to be careful because insurance isn't really covered with if your car goes in or your fish house goes in. So you have to make sure that there's a lot of ice up there. And it is important to practice a lot of safety. So it is amazing how much ice some of the lakes around here can get. We go pretty far up north near Canada for a lot of our trips, and there'll be like 3 feet of ice. So you kind of are driving out there and you're like, wow, I don't know about this. And then you start drilling and you're like, you can barely get your auger through. So you feel pretty comfortable at that point.
Okay. Got it. So it's not like you can see the fish moving below the ice. It's like super deep. That gives me some comfort for whatever reason. That gives me some comfort.
If you guys are ever up here and want to go, you have an open invitation.
He's laughing because he knows I'm very bad at being in anywhere cold.
Sure.
Anywhere.
I get that.
He's got sweaters and heaters on and it's only 60 degrees outside.
That's great.
But I have family in Canada, like deep into Canada, like Manitoba and Quebec City. And when I go visit them, they're like feet of snow. Feet plural, not 1 foot, many feet of snow. I said feet on purpose to emphasize the plurality of how high the snow is. And
totally.
So yes, I do venture into the cold to visit my family.
Mm.
And that's
Sure.
about
Well,
it.
that's
But
very nice of you. And aim for the
friends
summer
too.
months then.
Friends too, Kat. Friends too. So maybe I will come.
Yeah. Awesome. There you go. There you go. Happy to have you.
Love, love, love. So I've been hogging this whole conversation,
That's so
Shamil.
good. I've enjoyed it.
You have a
I got a front row seat. But no, Kat, if you could, I'm really curious, especially because you're doing the psychology part now, and you're shifting gears in that direction.
Mhm.
I would be curious if you could shed a little bit of light on what the journey was like for you. Did you know when you're taking out the loans what it would be like when you were paying it back? I know there are a lot of people that when they take out the loans, they just sign, right? They're just like, all right, I got a goal. This is the paper that's going to get me to my goal. I'm going to sign it and take care of it later. And then when they get the bill, they're like, what? Is that an experience that you had, or were you, like you said, you were a planner? Did you know what you were getting yourself into?
Totally. I love that question. Yes. So I am definitely a planner, but I was completely financially illiterate until
Mhm.
about 5 years after becoming a PA and learning about financial independence. So I was completely naive. It was like, well, I need to go to PA school. I want to go to PA school. This amount doesn't sound unreasonable compared to other programs. So,
Mhm.
different programs, you certainly could pay less depending upon the program, or a lot more depending upon the program. So there is quite the variety with that. But it was my goal. And so I decided just to take it out. And I think that I did go into it pretty naively because it's like I'm far from my future self, and I'll make a pretty decent paycheck and it shouldn't be that hard to pay off. So I was pretty naive back then, where I just took it out and, paid the loans, and also had to have some money for living expenses, obviously, and things like
Yeah.
that. So
Well, you're not alone, right? Like that's the benefit, is that like your experience is very real, and a lot of people go through that same experience. And I'm glad to hear that, you share that. And that's a big part of what we try to do here in the Student Loan Podcast, is really share that reality, about how sometimes that being naive actually helps you take those, chances that you might otherwise not take, when you have more life experience. But at least, like you said, it's been a great career for you. It was inspired by your injury, and now you're literally helping other people that need assistance. So really good, good for you for doing that. So can we switch gears a little bit and ask and talk about how you decided to tackle it, right? So you've got 122,000 plus, a little over, that in student loan debt. I mean, what do you do, right? What's your plan? I know you have this great podcast that's talking about FI, financial independence. Let's walk these listeners through it, so maybe somebody else can get inspired to do the same thing.
yeah, that's awesome. So my story to start with is not very inspiring, to say the least. Back when I was looking at all of the student loan debt, I was like, how do people pay this off? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I did refinance really quickly. So I refinanced through SoFi, and my interest rate was brought down to 6.24%. I don't remember where it started with those federal student loans, but it was lower, and to say, several $1,000s. I thought that it was a good thing to do.
Yes.
And then unfortunately, I started meeting with a financial advisor right out of PA school, and he promoted whole life insurance to myself and my husband.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So you guys know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty gung-ho to pay back my student loans, and that was my first question for him. How do I pay these back off quickly, right?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, he's all about promoting that whole life insurance to young, healthy individuals. And and he's like, oh, well, you get some tax benefits if you pay those loans, and that's up until a certain dollar amount for your income and things like that. And there's no rush to pay off those loans. You should instead do this, and you can invest through your whole life insurance. And it was just, poor advice. So I basically started paying over the course of 10 years was my plan, to pay it off within a decade, which I still think isn't awful. It's not advice I would give to people nowadays. I would suggest you try to pay off quite a bit more quickly. However, I am still paying on my student loan 7 years out of PA school. And even though I learned about financial independence a couple of years ago, I am now making many more a lot larger payments to pay off my student loans. So I'm overpaying on them. So it will be less than the 10 years. but it's probably not as quickly as it could have been, right? And we certainly have fired our financial advisor and now do a lot of the things
Good
ourselves
choice.
and stuff like that. So that's been pretty great too. But since learning about financial independence too, myself and my husband, we've been really gung-ho about investing, right? And
Mhm.
so even though my student loans are still there, I did refinance again about a year and a half ago and brought my interest amount down to 4.094% through SoFi again. So I did refinance through SoFi. And before that, I wasn't even aware that you could refinance private student loans again. And then also again and again, if you wanted to. I just was completely oblivious. I thought if you did it once, that was it. You were done, right?
Yeah.
So I did refinance again, but I feel comfortable investing a lot of money right now instead of trying to tackle that student loan debt.
Mhm.
Right.
Has a pretty decently low interest rate. So some people are completely debt averse and want to get those student loans paid off ASAP, right? And that's probably the advice that I would give to most new PA grads would be to try to pay off your debt pretty quickly, but invest some along the way to allow some compound interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you follow a methodology at all, like the Dave Ramsey baby steps or choose FIs, pillars? Like, did you follow a methodology or was it just like, this sounds like a good idea?
Yeah, great question. So at the beginning, I wasn't really following anything because I was completely naive when it came to finances. But how I learned about financial independence was through the Choose FI podcast. One of my friend's husbands, we were talking at a wedding about travel rewards. He introduced me to that concept through the Choose FI podcast. And that's where I learned about financial independence. So I absolutely love their advice, their pillars of FI, those types of things too. And Dave Ramsey does have a lot of excellent advice too. I would just be a little bit more open to credit cards than he is, or obviously a little bit more open to carrying some debt than he is. But he also, obviously has tons of excellent advice too. So
Of course. Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's like everybody has to figure out what approach works best for you, right? So for some people, that is Dave Ramsey, eat soup. What does he say again? He's like, so sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then he's like, eat rice and beans and like starve until you're debt free and all you've saved is like $1,000, and that works for some people. It really does.
Yep.
And then other people are like Ramit Sethi, like spend on what you want, and they're like,
yes.
but make sure you invest and the debt will happen. Don't worry about,
Totally.
And then other people are kind of like in the middle. And I agree with you that the Choose FI pillars are really sort of harmonizing, I think, the best of all of the different worlds while still allowing for you to live a decent life, because focusing on the FI is like, it's not so much like retire early, retire early, retire early. That's almost like a negative mindset where you're telling yourself there's a time when it's going to be too late to retire, instead of focusing on being financially independent, which is that FI piece. So I agree with you that I'm also a listener. Obviously, that's how we met.
Yeah, totally.
But I also definitely, am a proponent of financial independence.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's great. I definitely lean a little bit more towards the side of you need to enjoy your life, even if you are paying back debt. So you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And I think that's important to try to find that balance in life.
Nope. And with the laws written the way they are today, who knows what happens with your student loan debt when you die. So
sure.
There's that.
Sure.
There's that. That's super rewarding.
Mhm.
And I think you've had such an interesting view, right? Because you have like this expertise in financial independence. Your professional career right now has migrated over to sort of understanding psychology and psychiatry. That's got to work really well when it comes to money psychology. Like, I'm just saying, like, have you looked introspectively even at yourself, right? Your partner, and just said, what's our money psychology and how is that impacting how we operate?
Definitely. I actually just thought that about your mindset and things like that too. So I do think that it plays a role about how even you're growing up, how you first learned about money, how your parents dealt with money. So you learn different things about finances and money even as a child, right?
Yeah.
So I think that aspect is super interesting. And I have this book on my list of books that I need to read. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Yeah.
I've not read it yet, but I've heard it's amazing. So I definitely am wanting to check that book out.
Yeah.
Oh, good. And you know what? That reminds me of a recent episode that we had with Rob Phelan, episode 51. I'm curious to see what he did mention, and I thought you might like this, Kat, is that the study that he referenced was that most individuals learn their money habits between the ages of 7, 8, and 9. So then as an adult, you're really just fighting off those fundamentals essentially that you've built unintentionally, because it's not like a lot of us know that. So when you're raising your kids anyway, by the time you figure that out, the damage is done.
Right. Isn't that very interesting? It is kind of sad when you think about it, but if you can kind of flip that and reverse that, if you do have younger kiddos and like, okay, now's the chance I need to start teach them. And I don't have any kiddos myself. My husband and I, we may in the future, but we don't quite yet. But we have nieces and nephews, and my sister's daughter is 6 and she's the oldest. And it's just super fun to see her mind work and to try to talk with her about counting money, saving money, delaying gratification. So they get like a store at school, and if they earn these dollars through school. But she told me one time, like, oh, I've been saving up for weeks and I finally got this thing. I thought that was really mature,
good.
in kindergarten as a 6-year-old. And I was like, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. I hope to be able to do that.
That's a good point.
Right?
That is fantastic. What are they teaching them in 6th grade now? That's great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So another question to follow up on what you were saying, Daphne, could you give us some tips for the audience, right? Because remember, we try at the Student Loan Podcast to serve as a resource for technical advice, right? We have guests that are advisors or counselors, or, we've had other FI individuals on that give like very technical advice on like step 1, step 2, step 3. But I'd be really curious if you could share a couple of tips that people can use that are dealing with the financial anxiety that can be produced from having overwhelming student loan debt. So are there some things that you would recommend just as general? Remember, Kat is not your PA, right? This is just general advice that you may want to look into, but like, is there anything in particular that you think some people could, implement today?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting and great question. There's definitely lots of directions the answer could go with that. But what comes to mind is that it really is important that you take a role and be your own advocate when it comes to finances. Before I was pretty clueless and naive, and my husband would just pay the bills, but he really does not like any of this financial stuff at all. But I thought he was the finance guy in our relationship because he was taking care of the bills, right? But when I took it upon myself to learn about this and to try to help teach him and get him on board, those types of things, it really is empowering and helps so much with that anxiety of, okay, I know that these student loans will be paid off soon. I know that we are saving and investing for our future. So it really does alleviate that anxiety. And in regards to some resources, I mean, we've already touched on the Choose FI podcast. They have their own book as well. I think that Jonathan and Brad do an awesome job with both of those. For the medical providers out there, there's the White Coat Investor. He's awesome. And then there's the Physician on Fire too. So I would say that those 3 have been the most empowering people to listen to and learn about from, because they are just such a great resource.
I love and admire your dedication towards getting us to a place where more people are aware of this financial independence movement. It feels when you're in it that it's second nature, but when you speak outside of the bubble, you realize that not a lot of people are considering this yet. What motivates you to achieve financial independence?
I love that question. I think that it's very important that everybody try to figure out their why. It's so important. So I think too, before I go into that a little bit, I think it's important to also emphasize that anybody technically needs to reach financial independence before they technically can officially retire. So it's not just those who are thinking about retiring early, but it's, if you feel like you're going to retire at traditional retirement age, you do need to have enough saved and invest to be able to do that. Otherwise, you'll probably find yourself working again in a few years. But personally, although I enjoy my job, I have been burnt out over the years. It's very challenging, very stressful. I was burnt out before the COVID pandemic, and then the COVID pandemic hit. And so I honestly don't see myself working as a PA until traditional retirement age.
Right.
I will very likely work in the profession for many years to come, but it probably won't be until age 65. So that's definitely one of the reasons for pursuing financial independence. However, I did touch on it as well a little bit earlier too, that I think it's really important that you do seize the day, live life in the moment, try to enjoy your journey to financial independence, not just live in deprivation, push everything off, because you aren't guaranteed to even make it until traditional retirement age. So unfortunately, my dad passed away in his early 60s, and then my husband's dad passed away in his early 50s. So neither of them even made it until traditional retirement age, right? So it's like you don't know that you're guaranteed to live that long. Additionally, I have had so many patients tell me, especially back in family medicine, that, hey, my husband just retired. Then he was diagnosed with a horrible disease like ALS or Lou Gehrig's or things like that, or cancer, right? And then they pass away pretty quickly. And it's like, okay, even if you do make it till traditional retirement age, you might not be in the best health. Or if you are fortunate enough to be healthy, then you might have a lot of aches and pains, right? So it might be kind of difficult to travel to those hikes, do that adventuring that you want to do as you get a little bit older, have some birthdays. So I think that it's really important that you think about what you want your whole life to look like and try to plan as much as you can if you are a planner. Or if you're like my husband, just play life by the things and today like he does. So we're a good balance with that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not talking about us.
I'm the planner, if you haven't guessed.
Sure.
But no, I think why some people choose to delay gratification, it's a question to me now, but the truth is that I was that person, right? I delayed gratification for a long time because there was always this huge, colossal goal that I was aiming towards. So with that in mind, my question for you is, are you fat fire, lean fire, mini fire, all the fires?
Sure.
Which one are you?
Sure. That's great. So we are pursuing traditional fire right now, but we probably are going to do fat fire with a cushion, because if we do retire, earlier than traditional retirement age, you probably should be fat fire technically. So normal, I don't know how aware some of your listeners are about financial independence, but normally traditional is 25 times your exit. That usually lasts for maybe about 30 years, according to the Trinity study. So if you are wanting to retire a fair amount earlier than age 65, then you probably should have more than 25 times saved and invested. So probably more the fat fire is what we're aiming for.
Yeah, no, I think fat fire is definitely should be a consideration for anybody who seeks to retire, quote, young, which is, I guess, anything below, I don't know, 50, 60. I don't want to look, I'm not calling anybody old. That is subjective. I'm not calling anyone old or young, but do the math is essentially what we're saying, ladies and gentlemen. Do the math and see how many years you're likely to live and how much money you're going to need to live each one of those years. That's just the truth. It's a numbers game. The fat fire movement. I don't know why that's not promoted more, because it sounds greedy, but the truth is that fat fire is the way if you're, considering early retirement.
And I think you and I as planners, like the part of fat fire too, there's contingencies and just in case things happen.
Correct.
And things like
Correct.
That. So
what's the most expensive medical event that could happen? Let's plan for that. Those types of things.
Exactly.
I have many spreadsheets and algorithms.
Bless you.
It helps keep me comfortable, but I also listen to like the other extreme, which is Ramit Sethi. So I try not to live in the spreadsheet, but the truth is that if I don't look at my spreadsheet at least once a month, I'm not comfortable. So how often do you check your spreadsheet?
Great question, Daphne. So I technically don't have a spreadsheet.
Really?
Believe it or not, me being a planner, I use personal capital.
Oh,
and that's
okay,
all I do is track our net worth, but I don't have legit spreadsheet, with all the budget and things like that. But if you're counting personal capital, I do check it quite a bit. It's probably every few days, just because it's kind of fun to watch.
Just to make sure nothing changed. I love the emails from Personal Capital when they say you spent whatever number less than this. That's my favorite email to receive.
Yeah.
When they tell me I didn't spend a lot of money, I'm like, oh, thank you. I just feel so good about myself.
There you go. Or you have your spouse's information linked, and
Yeah.
I look at him and I go, "Oh, you need to be paying off your credit card soon here. That's
Oh,
a pretty high
no.
credit card that you have."
He's
He
like,
might
are
not
you a
like
bill
so much.
collector?
Yeah, right. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. I need that reminder."
Oh, that's super cute, guys. I
funny.
love that.
That is a good one. I had a quick question, Kat. What about because I like the idea that you said that you're paying off your student loan debt, but you're also living your life, right? Outside of becoming a professional ice fisherman, right? No, but all jokes aside, I guess like if you don't mind, like budget allocation, like percentages, right? I know we're glad to have you on as a PA, but I want to make sure other professionals are like, hey, well, what can I do to kind of follow in those footsteps? Like, how can I be financially independent, right? You hear that? Tell me anyone who's listening or anybody you speak to, is like, no, I don't want to be financially independent, right? Like that's not a thing.
Some people,
So
you never know.
that's true, but at least the people I speak to. So, and the people listening to this podcast, hopefully, if you're listening to Kat, you can, glean some advice that you can actually implement. So let's take a dive into that.
So, as you know, there are different budgeting types of methods, right? And some are definitely like every dollar, meaning that every dollar is assigned a job. Some are a percentage, like you need to put in this percentage to savings / investing, this percent into the needs, and this percent into wants. I am more so like where we pay off what we need to pay off right away. And then what's left over, we decide if we want to spend it. Both of us are pretty good about like, hey, do we really want this? Do you feel like this will bring joy in our life? We definitely discuss it, think about it, those types of things. So it's more so that we try to, pay off our debt, pay off our bills, those types of things too. We also have been building our emergency fund and our cash savings because we're also still in the process of remodeling our house. So a fair amount's going towards that too. But in regards to different hobbies or interests or things like that, if we feel like wanting, like we afford it, we just go ahead and do it and get it. So we're not restrictive in that sense. Again, it's the finding the balance between saving and investing for the future, living for now, and YOLOing. So we definitely do a lot of travel rewards too for saving on travel. So definitely have gotten into the credit cards and travel rewards points to be able to travel and keep doing that hobby for very close to free at least.
Love.
Nice.
I would ask what's in your wallet, but I don't think I can ask that question. But I am interested. Maybe we can talk offline about like how you're leveraging sort of points. This is not advertising for any sort of company. Like,
Even though you use their slogan.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not mean to use whoever's slogan. I don't even know whose slogan that is.
We won't say we're not sponsoring the pod, so we're not giving them that credit.
I don't know who that is. And I listened to Ramit Sethi. He like swears off all banks anyways.
Oh, okay.
So
that's all good. No, teasing. I'm teasing.
I don't even know. I'm apologize. Please don't sue me.
I love you guys are worried about this because of your guys' backgrounds. This is very entertaining for me.
It just comes in automatically.
When you read terms and conditions for a living, it just really densifies life. But hey, well, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Bless you guys for doing that because that would give me a headache.
Really? I mean, it's funny how like everybody has sort of like a weird niche thing that contributes to help like the world just spin its wheels, because I love reading. Like I have to be honest, I love finding nuanced things in documents, and I enjoy it. And I've been in hospitals where I see medical professionals standing for 13 hours a day, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And I've told them that I'm like, I respect what you're doing so much. One, weren't you here 24 hours ago? Like, how are you still here? Oh, I never went home. Like,
Sure.
It's a talent. It's a talent. So
yeah, those are definitely the inpatient hospital providers and nurses and things like that. I am outpatient, so I have pretty cush hours.
But
so
outpatient still, it's still a struggle, right? I think not a struggle, but I think I admire the work of outpatient as well, right? Because you're there, you're modeling some, like if it's outpatient where you have ongoing care with a particular patient, you're developing a relationship with them. You're seeing how outside sort of influences are affecting their care. You have emotional like gratitude and I guess generosity, I think is a better word, that I don't have. I'm just going to be honest.
Well, thank you.
Just going to be honest. Don't come to me with your problems, ladies and gentlemen.
Maybe you'd be a good surgeon then, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Thank you.
radiologist, where you look at X-rays. Or
Yeah, I think surgery. I think the way that my one of a family friend was describing the precision and sort of methodology, I was like, that sounds interesting. It sounds more
sure.
like engineering and creation than relationship building.
Definitely surgical rotations are required for us, and I absolutely loved my surgery rotations. So it's very fun.
Really? That's so funny that people say that, because I don't know. She was describing like opening a trunk of a human being, and I was like, oh my goodness. She's like, there's the trunk method where you just kind of cut in a rectangle and you pop it open, and I'm like,
she was so excited. She was so
excited to talk about this.
And there's robots. You get to use like robots in some surgeries. That's
yes,
fun.
Oh, man,
yes.
that's
No, I
pretty
mean,
sick.
you guys, it's a talent. So we all have our talents. I admire yours as well. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
It's great. You guys are awesome.
No, thank you, Kat. And so before we wrap up, I actually wanted to see if we can go into a lightning round. What did you think, Daphne?
Do we have time for lightning round?
I
It's
don't
going to be
know.
the fastest lightning
All
round
right,
ever.
so Kat has like we've done for every one of our guests. So if you haven't listened before, you might be like, what is going on? Kat is actually not prepared for any of these questions. So Kat, the rules of the game are, we're going to throw a question at you and you have to give us your impulse response. Okay. So we intentionally did not give you any of these questions in advance. And it's just to have fun. It's a good way for us to, close out the podcast.
Sure.
So in choosing financial independence, rice and beans or ramen noodles?
Ramen noodles.
Oh, okay. Ocean view or mountain view?
Oh, that's such a tie. I can't even say. They're both awesome.
Choose for the purpose of just the lightning round.
Probably would say ocean.
Okay. Financial independence at 40 or 50?
40.
She's like, duh.
And paying off your credit card bill in full every month, or waiting till the pay period to pay it off, like the 2 months?
Oh, every month, more like every few days.
Yeah. Love it. That's all, folks.
Yep. Thank you, Kat, so much for joining us. Is there anything before we go that you wanted to share with the audience as a final message, and also how they can reach you?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
course.
We touched on how I have the PA, the FI Way podcast, so you can listen on major podcast players of your choice. I also have a website. It's pathefiway.com. And I recently created a beginner's workbook. So it's called the PA the FI Way Beginner Workbook for those who are PAs, but just are learning about financial independence. It's a pop-up on the website. You can fill that out and get your copy. And otherwise, you can send me an email at kat@pathefiway.com. I'd be happy to hear from you and get some feedback from you. I'm also on Instagram at PA the FI Way as well. And then I do have a PA the FI Way Facebook page. And under that Facebook page, you can also join a private Facebook group if you are a current or future PA out there that would like to learn a little bit more about financial independence. So my whole role of my business is to really promote financial independence and financial literacy amongst both current and future PAs out there. And I hope that you find the information valuable that you find in those resources. And I'd be absolutely happy to connect with you as well. So thank you so much again. It was really fun to talk with you both.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you so much, Kat. For more information about this episode and more, visit thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 54. That's thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 54. Thank you.